Hey, what's up everyone, TJ here, and welcome to my review of the all-new Never Summer Proto Type 3 in collaboration with Snowboard Mag. Let's get into it. Alright guys, real quick for your reference before I jump into the construction on this one. I'm 5'10", I weigh around 155 pounds, and I tested this board in size 154. And I'm going to have this board, as well as all of my other gear, linked down below the video if you're curious and want to check it out. Now the Never Summer Proto Type 3 builds off the beloved Proto Type 2, if you're familiar with that snowboard, and is like an all-mountain freestyle board on their lineup. It does have a true twin design, so it's going to give you that switch stance versatility, riding exactly the same in either direction, which is critical in the terrain park. And it runs their recurve triple camber profile. So that's relatively new on the Never Summer line, but it is a camber dominant bend, but there's a little bit more going on than just camber. So it actually has 3 camber zones separated by small rocker zones in between them, with an overall camber dominant bend. So between your feet, you're gonna find camber, then you're gonna have a small rocker zone, and then a camber zone under each foot as well. That's gonna comprise the triple camber. And then there is like a bit of a reverse blend after that last camber zone out into the tip. So I'd say overall it has a little bit of like a cam rock kind of feel to it, just like a very light reverse outside the camber there. You are gonna get a ton of carbon fiber built into the layup of this snowboard, and this is actually a layup I've never seen before, I think new for the Proto Type 3 from Never Summer, and they call it their precision stitched carbon matrix. And you can actually see the way that's laid in on the top sheet here. They kind of embossed that into the top sheet. So there's a lot of carbon in the tips, and that's kind of geared towards getting energy into the camber zone so you can really load the board up well and just maximize the power you get out of this thing. It also has just straight up 2 fat carbon stringers running down the entire length of the board. So there's a ton of carbon in this thing, and that's just gonna help get you more energy and more snap. Other than that, you're also gonna find Never Summer's classic dampening tech built in throughout this snowboard to just help smooth out the ride as you're out there exploring and ride with a more all-mountain approach. I think that's when it's most noticeable, as well as this powder pack right here. So you'll notice on the inserts, there's actually an extra set at the bottom here. So if you do wanna use this board in soft snow conditions, maybe you find yourself out there on a very deep day, you can just slap that stance way far back, make the nose quite a bit longer, and just have it feeling more maneuverable and floaty in that condition, which is kind of cool. I think they really want this board to just be an all-arounder for the team. So it's kind of cool to see that in, you know, more of a freestyle park board. And lastly, you are gonna get a nice sintered base on this one. So that is a dense, higher end base material that is durable and fast. And of course, you do want to make sure to wax it regularly. I wax about every 3 or 4 times I ride, so it just stays nice and fast for the whole season. So that's it for the tech breakdown on this one. Let's talk about how it actually feels out there. Let's jump into the review talking about the overall flex and feel you're gonna get here with the Proto Type 3. So I would say flex wise, this board sits a little bit on the stiffer side of medium, both lengthwise and torsionally. It has a very responsive feel to it. It's very sturdy underfoot. It has a nice, capable all-mountain feel to it. And I would say the flex is geared more towards giving you like power and snap versus giving you flex. And I think that's very noticeable when you're out there trying to do butters, something I do on every single snowboard. You can certainly still get it done. I think you just have to commit a little bit more than you might expect. And you do feel that kind of snappy feeling, like you have to fight against that overall camber bend because it just kind of wants to pull you back down to the snow. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. It's certainly not going to be like a super flexy or like traditionally buttery board. Probably more fun for like ground tricking type of butters where you're like using the flex and kind of doing more dynamic like combos and maneuvers out there. But you can certainly get it done. So I would say a pretty average feel for like doing butter type maneuvers, but it does give up some pretty good snap and pop, which I think is a good compromise, a fair compromise for what they wanted to do with this one. And when it comes to park laps and getting freestyle on the T3, I think that this board does have a little bit of a more advanced feel, a little bit of that more high performance kind of feel to it. I think you know, if you're like an intermediate rider looking at this snowboard, I think you could still get along with it pretty well and, you know, use it to progress kind of from that medium to large and beyond, but certainly not a beginner board. It has good stability, energy, and quite a bit of precision as well. So I do think it is a little bit more jump leaning when it comes to hitting the park. I was really comfortable out there on the medium line at Copper. I know I hit an underflip out there. I went front 7 on this thing, and it just feels really good on the takeoff on jumps. Gives you a nice platform to launch off of. Of course, there's no issue landing switch. This is a board you could definitely take your riding to large and beyond with and feel like you have something solid under your feet that you can feel confident in. It's not going to feel like loopy and washy as you start to go bigger. And I think it is still comfortable on jibs, but probably a little more comfortable on features where you're taking in more speed. I think with the slightly stiffer torsional flex, it's just not as cozy for like smaller jibs where that leverage is nice, at least in my opinion. But you know, jibs like a slightly stiffer park board as well. So pretty versatile, but definitely a little bit more advanced. All right, and let's also talk about the experience you're gonna get with this thing exploring the resort and carving. So it's size 154, you're gonna get a 25.4 centimeter waist width, which sits comfortably in that versatile range. It's gonna give you nice, nimble edge-to-edge transitions. And you know, it's not particularly wide. I think if you really wanna dive into turns aggressively, the kind of board where you're gonna have to focus on ankle flexion a little bit more to get those deeper carves without dragging. But it holds an incredible edge. I was actually very surprised at how well this thing held on, even going quite fast. Now for the side cut, you're gonna find a 7.25 meter side cut on this thing. So it's actually, I think, a little bit tight for an all mountain snowboard. It's gonna throw you into a little bit tighter carves. You're gonna have a little bit of a more exciting feel at slower speeds on this thing. But generally speaking, I think this board is very capable around the resort. The only thing that I found is the tips do flutter a little bit. I think just because of that reverse blend over there. I think that's something that's gonna come through in the footage. All the different aspects of having that in the profile that I've been talking about. But it never made the board feel squirrely at all. It still held a really, really great edge. And you know, that was whether I was just diving into like a Euro carve or, you know, one maneuver I really like to do is like the cab 3 swivel to revert, which, you know, you're basically horizontal on the snow with that one, and it just held on with no issue. So this is definitely going to be very capable for all mountain exploring. I think if you really start to like bomb hills and free ride with it, you may eventually be able to find the limits, but it's not going to be easy. This thing is pretty bomber out there. Now, one last thing I quickly want to mention, even though I didn't get this board out on a POW day or in the backcountry or anything like that, is the tips aren't very steep. They have a little bit of a more gradual bend. So I think that that is going to help you out in softer snow, especially if you're utilizing these powder packs here. Just a small note that I think is worth knowing about this one. It's a little bit different from like your typical twin. Okay, so at the end of the day, you're on the market for an all mountain twin. You want something capable and versatile for exploring the resort, but still has a freestyle character at its core. The Proto Type 3 is an interesting one to look at. It's got a lot of unique tech built into the design that really help distinguish it from other similar boards in the category. I think everything from this carbon matrix to the powder pack to, of course, the bend, including the tips, are pretty rad and pretty unique. So that sounds like something you'd be interested in. You want to check out what Never Summer's doing with traditional camber. Maybe you were a fan of the Proto Type 2. Definitely don't miss the Proto Type 3. I'm going to have this board linked down below this video, so it's right there for you, as well as a link to the latest issue of Snowboard Magazine. So please make sure to go check those out. And if you got some value, drop a like before you leave and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next review. I'll see you there.